the problem with asking people what they want is they don't know what's possible, and that's not solving their problem. That's giving them a new problem, right?
Welcome to another episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast, where we explore the ins and outs of the seven figure journey. We're excited to have Russell Toynes with us from Studio Dzo. Russell, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me, David.
You're calling out of Austin. You've got a great business that really niches down into powerfully designed signs. Like, people want to have their brand stand out and connect to other people in a deep and meaningful way. That's what you guys do. And you think, it's kind of boundless on the limits of what you'll do to make it really work well. Did I catch that right from my understanding of your business?
Yeah. We transform spaces and places. The big thing is how do we create a wonderful brand experience that is something that not only the brand and the owner is proud of, but also the users are excited to be in that space, and then when necessary, navigating that space effortlessly and having an equitable experience is critical, especially in residential projects and hotels and hospitality.
Very cool. Anyway, I mean, you've been running this business for a while, and you've done well. You've kind of outgrown some things and ways of doing it, and are branching out to find others who can keep up with the innovation and the great things needed in order to create those places and spaces for people to experience. So, can you share with us maybe a little bit of the insight? I mean, just building signs to surpass 1 million in revenue and to grow beyond that, that takes some doing. What lessons have you learned in that process that really helped you succeed since crossing that threshold?
Well, I want to clarify, we actually don't build anything. We are just the designers. But we do everything up into the actual fabrication, but we have fabrication partners all over. Essentially, we're a design studio, and you learn a lot of lessons as you not only create a business but create a creative business, and then also double down on a niche. And Creatives, it's easy, and I would say I would know. It's easy to have a product that you make and you sell it to the public, and your primary goal is to market it and get it in the hands of the right people. But when you're creating brands and you're elevating brands and you're transforming spaces and places, it's a process. And as much as you would love to be able to say this can be done in 6 weeks, or this can be done in 2 weeks, or this can be done, in a certain amount of time. Many of our projects can last as long as a year or more. And so the management of the workflow has always been a bit of a challenge, because you want to say yes to the things that are good, and you want to say no to the things that are not, but then you're like, I got bills to pay. So it's kind of the forecasting that you learn over the years of being able to know who to target, right? Who to get in front of. And yeah, we figured out a good system. We've planned our work and worked our plan. And yeah, the business is very unique, but it's a niche, like I said. So we're kind of stars. I know it's a weird place to shine, but we're a big fish in a small pond.
So let's dive in a little deeper. I mean, those are kind of broad terms. When you're like, yeah, we kind of built our plan and we work our plan now, whatever, or like, we've got our little systems. Do you mind getting a little specific, like for instance?
Yeah. So, to give you an example of like how we work and who we work with, uh, we'll just give an example like a developer, right? We're in Austin. If you've known anything about Austin, which I don't think people can ignore it, we've blown up in, I'd say, the last 10 years, and even more so in the last 5 years. So there's tons of growth in Austin, which is great for us. And really, we're kin to the construction industry. And so a developer is going to work with like an architect, and the architect and them are going to develop the building. But there's this component of signage that is required for ADA compliance, and then also just obviously necessary for the property. No one takes that on, right? Architects might attempt in their renderings to be like, oh, we're going to put a sign here, or you can put a sign here. They don't know what they're talking about. And they'll admit they don't know what they're talking about. They're just putting something there as a placeholder and it looks good. And then what ends up happening is that whole thing gets bidded by a construction company. And that construction company, that's a line item to find a vendor for those services. And then what typically happens is there's big sign companies that do everything from soup to nuts. They fabricate, they install, they do all of that. But what they're not good at is design. And so, and they won't admit it, but everyone like, yeah, they're just people who
Their
make.
product. They're just pushing a
Yeah,
product.
exactly. So they're like, what do you want? Right? What do you want? And the problem with asking people what they want is they don't know what's possible. And that's not solving their problem. That's giving them a new problem, right? Giving them a decision to make. And so what ends up happening is everyone plays kind of hot potato with that until they find us. Or if they've worked with us in the past, it's an immediate conversation of like call Studio Dzo. And where we fit in is that we are the conduit between the brand and the brand experience in person. So we immediately work with the we'll say the developer and whoever has developed the brand. If there's not a brand, then we develop the brand, and then we look at all the required signage, and then we look at all the upgraded architectural signage opportunities. So the things that make people take pictures, the things that when you go into a hotel and you go wow, or you go into a restaurant and that's what people show on Instagram. Um, we do all of that along with the wayfinding, the unit IDs, so like your 101s, your 102s, maintenance, all the rooms that you kind of don't pay attention to until you actually need to, elevator, egress, all of those things that are absolutely required and necessary for a space, but often get overlooked. And when they're done well, you never see them, right? They're only there when you need them. But when they're not done well, they stick out like a sore thumb. They're
Yeah.
ugly, they distract, and they don't function. And so that's where we fit in. And we don't advertise. We don't buy any ads. We don't do anything. We believe in good work leads to more good work. All of our business is word of mouth. It's continued business with partnerships that we've had for 8 years now. And I speak about the work that we do. I get on stages. I'm also an educator. So I use my background in education to talk about the business, and we're very transparent about how we run business because the sign industry has always been treated kind of like I said, the kind of
It's an
the
afterthought.
bastard child. Yeah, it's like the bastard
Yeah.
child of construction. And
Hmm.
so we're here to our number one goal when starting Studio Dzo was to disrupt the sign industry by putting design first, and that is what we've done over the last 8 years. And Yeah, that's in a nutshell kind of how we do. So we design, but then from there, right, it would do nothing for them if we just designed and said, "Here you go. Here's a bunch of pretty pictures and some fabrication details on a file. Go, go. Good luck." Right? We actually take it the next step forward, and we have strategic partners that we've worked with for years that fabricate the work that we design. So that way, and we handle that whole process. So that way, what shows up to be installed is actually what we designed with all the intention, materiality, scale, and everything. What we have found is that, again, there's this disconnect when someone maybe chooses a cheaper fabricator and uses our work and hires us just for the design process. What they end up with is not what they intended and is not what we intended. And so there's always going to be that disconnect if you're kind of dividing the process up. And so we do our best to make that as seamless as possible for our partners. And we call our clients partners because it truly is a partnership. And so, yeah, we take it, we handle it all. Like I said, we say from phone call to install, we take care of everything.
Great. So one thing you did was that's helped you is you've niched down in and this is my space and it's solving this very particular issue that we don't see others doing a very good job at. In fact, you kind of married two disciplines from signage and design, brought your people together and
Absolutely.
like we're this like you told me before the show, we're kind of a weird hybrid that comes out to be highly effective to do the work that's needed, right?
That's
Um,
the Zoe.
that's the Zoho. That's I know you had to teach me the word. So and so that's really cool. Um, Give me another now outside of just like, hey, here's the cool stuff we do. Tell me some of the things you've had to do internally to help you to win and grow beyond now.
Great question. It's a process, right? So a creative business, there's subjectivity to it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which ultimately being the owner and the creative director falls on me to be the judge, jury, and executioner when it comes to what goes out the door, and is somebody doing the type of work that we want to be associated with. So the first
So,
thing,
so you still own the creative director hat at your business.
absolutely, absolutely. So me and my wife
Okay.
own the business together. She's the controller, in both in the house and in the studio,
It's good to
and
be honest. It's good to be
and
honest.
and then I'm the art director, creative director, sorry, and the co-owner. So we have two art directors, we have a project manager, and we have a production designer, and we have a brand manager.
Great. Um, so yeah, keep
So
going. Keep going.
you were saying kind of some of the internal work. Some of it has been the earlier challenges were, you want to hire people who are have some sign design background, right? Because obviously, starting a business with a bunch of people who don't know what they're doing, including myself, because I've never built a sign in my life, would be dumb, and yeah, we would be out of business quickly. So when we first started working and hiring people who had sign design backgrounds, what we found is they were used to doing the work that they knew would get approved, right? And I say approved with air quotes because it's approved by who, right? Approved by a fire marshal, basically vanilla, right? What's going to just do the job, and that is 90% of the sign companies out there. They got a kit of parts that they just give you A, B, and C. You get to pick from. It might change the color or something, but ultimately it's the same old thing. And hiring these people and then seeing that that's their go-to, and then having to course correct and say, no, that's not who we are, and forcing them to go back and develop a concept and ask themselves why, and learn to present their work and pitch their work, and really dig in deep and not just check a box, but actually provide a solution. That was a little bit hard because some of these people had 15 years in the sign industry designing, and I'm starting this business, and they are like, who are you to tell me? Well, first, I'm the owner, but second of all, like, just because you've been doing the same thing wrong for 15 years doesn't mean it's
Yeah.
okay. So really pushing them and learning and hiring the right people, and then also learning how the process is, right. I have 15 years as a designer. I have pitched concepts and I have done amazing work for global companies, but it's very different when you're working with a construction company, and the first thing they ask is, how much is this? And you're like, you didn't even listen. You didn't even, like, you're not even looking at what the solution is. You're just worried about the money, right? And so it's how do you navigate that? How do you create a processes that get them excited? The cold hearted, money driven foreman, right, or a construction project manager. How do you get them excited? And how do you get them on board to spend a little bit more money than maybe they intended? And then how do you get them to come back, right? And
Yeah.
so it's all about the processes, because ultimately we figured out really quickly, we sell trust. That's it, right? That's all we sell is trust. When someone trusts you, they will find money, they will find time, because building trust is so much more expensive ultimately than finding a couple of more thousands of dollars, right? Or getting an extra 6 weeks or whatever to finish the process out. So I tell my team over and over regularly, remember, we sell trust. Like, so make sure that what we're doing, we know why, we understand their problems, we connect with them, but we are a partner in this process. We're not just a vendor, we're a partner. So help them feel supported and nurtured.
So let's pull some of these pieces out. I know you talked about a process to build and this and that, but really you've created or you pulled people in who had their idea of what the right thing was, and you had to sell a vision, and build trust with your team that they could
Absolutely.
believe in this. Each time you bring somebody in, no, really, there's another way. Trust me, right? These are our partners we're working with. They're not the customers we sell a product to. We don't sell a product, right? We're partnering with them to create places and spaces. Um, how do we build trust? We're building trust. The messaging must be constant from you to keep the
Absolutely.
team all in line, right? To keep them, and I don't want to say in line, really to free them up to run after the objective together, right?
Yeah,
Like,
on board.
yeah, fully on board, fully in, where they're doing great things. We're not putting a thumb on them, holding them down. You're freeing them up to see it differently and to come the direction you want them to go. And I'm hearing that just in the way you're talking about it. So I just wanted to pull those out as some real nuggets that sometimes we don't think about. As our team gets bigger, as our revenues grow, it's more important to be clear with everyone all the time. What are we all about? What are we really solving for? Right?
We have we have one motto that is over everything. There's a short and a long version of it, but the long version, we'll start with that, is do good work for good people with good people. And that really is our mantra. It gets boiled down to do good work. But ultimately, what everybody on the team has to understand is that we're good, and we
Yeah.
only work with good, and we only deliver good. And making sure that that is kind of the litmus test we run everything through, is important. And that, from the moment we started, that was kind of a mantra. And building a team is very much like building a sports team, right? You have to have these kind of mantras and these things, to kind of get people to, for a lack of a better example, drink the Kool-Aid. And so, getting them to understand, like, that's not good, right? And be able to use that in a way that makes them go, you're right, I'm going to do it better. And then also, how do you level that up to behavior, right? In responding internally or responding externally, even behavior outside of the workplace. It's like, is that good, right? Are you representing yourself and our team and the business, off the field, the same way as you're expected
No
to on
doubt.
the field?
Yeah.
And so using that, and then doing the same thing for our partners and explaining to them, like, you're a good person, right? That's why we're doing work with you. So good people work together, right? Good people don't just demand. Good people don't just tell people, I want this and just do this. But good people work together. And then, uh, with good people, is the second part, is the people that we actually work with beyond our immediate in-house team. So our fabricating partners, our installation partners, they are expected to uphold the same ethics and quality that everybody on our team. So it just becomes this kind of filter that if you don't fall within the good work program, sorry. And it's just very
You're out.
objective, right?
Yeah. And critical. Like, think how many headaches are avoided by not dealing with jerk suppliers instead of working with good people. And almost everyone can be a good people. They just need to be invited into it and be reminded of it. Right.
We've had to fire clients because they
Yeah.
were not being good people, and then they've come back,
Yeah.
and it would be years later, and they come back and they apologize, and we listen, and we go, okay, you recognize that you treated somebody in our team not well, and we can move beyond that, but at the same time, we're not gonna tolerate any bad behavior from anybody, because I didn't start this business to answer to anybody, right? And that's why we call everybody we work with partners. I don't work for anybody, I work with people, and
I
that's
love
it.
it. That's cool. The intentionality around your culture has been one of the keys to success in your growth. The people you work on your team, people you work with as partners, and the people that you're associated with for vendors and such. What a key in there. And a lot of times we take shortcuts because we ourselves think, well, I could save a few bucks, and saving a few bucks just
Ends
kills
up costing you so much more in
everything
the
else.
end.
So, okay, great lesson. Thank you so much. It's funny. We went one direction. We should probably have another podcast, and I should dive in and say what everyone really wants to hear about is. So you're working with your wife,
Mm.
and tell us about this, and how do you do this well, and how do you manage the at work excellence and the at home harmony and excellence there, and keep it working so well together. I'm sure there's a lot more we could be learning, but today's show will move on. But if you want to drop a nugget, we'll receive one.
Lanes, right? Stay in your lane. Recognize your strengths and their strengths, and yeah, just stay in your lane is the number one thing you can do. You might think you could do it better. They might think they can do it better. If it's not solicited, just stay in your lane.
Okay. I love it. We'll take that as our little nugget. We can pick up and do with it what we will. Let's shift gears. Russell, you know, the fun thing about being an entrepreneur and overcoming challenges is it means you earn the right to face bigger challenges. And so
Mm.
you've earned the right. You're dealing with bigger issues now. What is a real issue right now that could really advance your growth or inhibit it if not done right that you're facing today?
So we have been fortunate to have steady work for 8 years. We've never struggled. We've always been profitable. I'm not going to lie. The pandemic early on, 2020 and 2021, there were some dark times, and we were wondering how things were going to work. But we pulled out, and 2023 was a stellar, stellar year for us. So, just like good work leads to more good work, right? The reward for hard work is more hard work. So, when you have great numbers one year, you can't go back, and so you find yourself, going just as you're taking on just as much work, you're doing just as many projects, bigger projects, and you start wondering, like, can I do this with the same team? And you start realizing, like, I can push them a little bit, right? And they're gonna step up to the plate. But at what point am I gonna start burning them out? And at what point am I gonna start dropping the ball? And the people that we have been working with for years start seeing some of the cracks, and they're like, hey, y'all were really good, but then now you've gotten too big, and you're dropping the ball. So it's this like weird growth pains where it's like, if we take on one or two more people, what is that? Now I got one or two more salaries to have to make sure. So now it becomes this, process where I have to continue to get more and more work. So we've always been strategic in our growth. We've always wanted to grow small because I've seen, especially in the creative industry, a studio will get a big client and then hire up and get a bunch of people to serve that client because they got a big contract, and then that contract doesn't get renewed in a year, and then they got to let people go. And we hear it all the time in businesses. People say, oh, it's like a family, but then it's toxic language and all that. But truly, like, we see every one of our team members like family members, and then they have their family, and I just don't feel comfortable going to them and saying, hey, I got to let you go, and your kids are going to have someone to provide for them and all that, because I didn't manage the growth of the business properly. So I don't feel, I'm not ready for that responsibility and that burden. So we've always been strategic about growing slowly and getting the most out of the people that we have. But also at the same time, I don't want to be in the situation where I have grown too slow, and the partners that we've done work for years are saying, hey, you're bogged down, you're not getting the stuff out as quickly, the quality's been compromised, looks like you've just kind of grown too big for your britches, maybe we need to find somebody else. Because then ultimately, by delaying growth, I'm creating the same situation I'm worried about in increasing growth, right? So it's this catch-22. That's been the biggest challenge for me and my wife. It's like, when to add one more, two more. Do we
Yeah.
divide that up?
Uh, Russell, how many people do you have right now in your team full time?
Uh, Full time. Everyone's full time, salaried employees, and we have 7 total if you include me and my wife. So we have 5 employees.
Okay, that's helpful. And then the cost of not fixing this is the way you've laid it out, at least, is one, we disappoint the customers because we can't grow with them. Or two, we disappoint the customers because we grow and our quality drops. Or three, We disappoint and hurt our team because we ramp up to care for the customers and we hire on and then have to fire. So we're like abusing. We're going to be abusing somebody if we don't figure this out. We'll either be abusing the business owners, you guys giving up all your profits as you go up and down and just saying goodbye to it, abusing the employees, or abusing the customers. So you're in a no-win situation right now, is what it feels
Exactly.
like. So
Yeah. I
yeah,
sleep well at night.
yeah, I could see. I actually think you do sleep well at night, Russell. But as much as the rest of us entrepreneurs do, is we wake up solving 1,000 problems at 2 a.m.
For real, for real.
So we should have had this call earlier. I really should start scheduling them because I'm seeing the clock then too.
You're like, okay, how many hours do I have left in the day?
Okay, so it is critical. It's a vital little spot. I want you to know that it's not a unique spot, though. It's one that everybody hits, and it has to do with the size you're approaching. You're about to hit 10 people. The 8 to 12 people is where there's this transition that happens. And if we don't make the transition, you see the quality suffer. And to put it in your terms, just as simple as I can, is you're trying to be the CEO and the creative director. You're deep in the work and supposed to be growing everybody and overseeing growth and opportunities and relationships and who's going to be our fabricators, all that stuff. Right. And so you can get great at one area, but the other area will suffer as you do that. As you add more people, it will start to stretch you more, and therefore the quality will go down. Unless we can shift gears in the way we organize our teams and lead them. And you've already laid such an important foundation for that. You've already recognized the staying power of culture and messaging can carry through more than being the one that sees and touches everything. So let the culture be around and touch and do everything while you're able to lead at that next level. So it's just a transition point. The thing is up to this point, you were allowed to be the guru, in essence, the person who figures all this out with a lot of very capable helpers. And we have to shift to a space that they are the heroes that come up with the great designs and see it and have the experience just right. And you learn to create multiple heroes to save the day or work hand in hand as partners with these others representing the organization, where they don't see Russell as the person, they see Studio Dzo as the brand.
And we've
Right.
been fortunate. That was a very, very strategic plan of mine in the beginning, was to always have our team in meetings, right? Not just me.
Yeah.
I might be the cheerleader and I might be the face for a lot of things, but when it comes to actually the work, the team has a
They've
autonomy and
got the
accountability.
relationships. Beautiful.
Absolutely, absolutely. So this was actually, we just got back from a month-long trip to Asia, and I always tell the team when we're gone, like, your job is to have a job when I come back, and they always do a killer job of maintaining the quality of work, the communication, upholding everything as if we were there, and especially in this recent trip, we had very limited to even no access to internet and email. So we really weren't able to remotely, check in on things.
Yeah.
And so it was a lot of trust, and they've done an amazing job. So I do have some potential leaders,
I love that.
in the works. It's the how do I get them to
How do
take
I
on
get
that
them to next?
responsibility?
Let's talk about that now. So then the second piece is, how do we organize the work in a way that doesn't just get stuff done, but builds the organization, kind of the engine we need 6 months, a year from now to continue its growth? How do I get my team organized to think strategically with me, to build the plane while it's in flight, to do
Yeah,
this work,
exactly.
right? And that's the beautiful spot. So you've laid a great foundation. Do you have right now a place or time set aside? So we're going to talk about places, spaces. Do you have places and spaces set up for your team to pull out from the daily and to work on the strategic imperatives, the future of the business, and to think bigger, to think about the trends in the economy and in the community, to do that kind of stuff with you.
In all honesty, um, there's one team member, and that's our brand manager, who has that kind of wider field vision and future focus.
Mm-hmm.
But the art directors, they are very much focused on the work,
Yeah.
and then are
Well,
only focused on the business when requested. Right.
yeah. Yeah. And that request, as we want to build, the question you asked was, do I have the right team to take me to that next level? And should I, and how should I, right? I feel like I have to do something. Do I have the right team? Can they get to that? Am I pushing them in places they don't want to go? And I think as what we've watched happen is that when businesses take the time to invite people in and say, "You're awesome creatives. I want you to get creative about our business with me." Okay. Or you're awesome accountants. And I want you to help me get the numbers straight for the future. I want you to imagine a little bit. We'll imagine the future. I want you to map out and forecast. Like let's pair some of these up, but you're good at this. I want you to apply it outside of places and spaces. And now I want you to apply it to our future place and space that we're going to hold in the greater system. Can you help me think about this? So here's something that we've built. We've helped hundreds of other businesses do this, and maybe this will be useful for you. Is that businesses will take and use a quarterly rhythm, and they'll say, okay, here's my key folks, and you've got 5 people working with you and your wife. You could have the whole team because you're small enough right now. You decide it. Maybe you're like, no, not those 2. I just want these 3. That's fine, right? Great. Pull aside, take a day a quarter, maybe 2 days once a year, and then a day on the other quarters, and step back and say, hey, let's look at the big picture. What was our vision again? What were we all about? What's the big thing we most care about creating? And let's get behind that this is something we want to do. We want to create a place for our team and their families to thrive because we see ourselves as a family. Or we want to create, 6,000 places and spaces. Maybe your number's more like 10 million. I don't know where your volume is, what size signage we're really doing, but still a number that people are like, yeah, that when anyone walks in, they feel comfortable. They feel like they have what they need. They feel like they fit, and they want to take a selfie because it looks stinking good too, right? Or whatever, right? Like we want to create these memorable places and spaces that just work. We want to do X amount of them. I don't know what your team is most inspired by, but we want to have those kind of goals. And so every quarter we're going to say, remember what we're all about. To get there from here, there's a gap, and we can all see it. Here's the gap. We need to imagine how we're going to get there. We see why we want it. It pulls at us. We think we can do it. But we've got to imagine together, what does that need to look like? How will we need to be organized as a team to get there? What kinds of tools will we need to use differently? What new partnerships will we need to form that will help us move there? There's going to be certain strengths you have that we need to leverage, and there's going to be other strengths you're going to need to build. We want the team to identify those together. Now, at first, they may not be good at that. So at first, you may step back and be like, okay, we want to get there from here. Let's just do a basic SWOT analysis. What are our strengths and weaknesses? What opportunities and threats out there could get in our way? And just inviting your team, like, why are you asking me about this? Like, yeah, tell me about some political trends that could affect us. Tell me about some social trends. Tell me about some demographic shifts. Let's talk about the economy in general. Let's look at, they're like, technological advances. They're like, what? I, I, I designed signs for people to use. Lovely. Why are you asking me about this? Like, just do it with me. I want you to imagine, because I believe you could create in bigger spaces if just allowed to. And I'm asking you to come and be a part. Then as they start doing that, once they've done it 3 or 4 quarters, they're starting to kind of get it, right? You may even have them researching some things before they come. And now they're in the trench every day, but they get an hour here or there to then intentionally look at the bigger picture. You're training them to think that way. Almost everybody can think that way. You know, just about everyone can get there when invited to. You just have to decide how much time you'll allow for them to get there. But invite them in, then co-create this plan. Here's where we need to go. Here's what we see the steps are. Here's the challenges this quarter, this year that we're going to need to respond to or take advantage of. These opportunities, these threats that could be opportunities. And now let's make a plan for it. And who's going to lead that up, right? So there's a place to then start to see, do you have the raw material in your business to have the leaders you'll need to go to your next level?
Let me ask you this. So, I mean, this is all like I've seen myself make one step in this direction,
Yeah.
but then it's the follow through, and I'll take all the responsibility of not following through because, again, we're in the trenches. To take them away from the work means to take them, to make some sort of compromises in the deliverables or in the quality of the work. So I have to carve out that time, and then I'll get them for an hour or two, get this ideation, and I walk away kind of feeling like you were saying of like maybe they're not good at it, right? Maybe they're not the ones.
Yeah.
And I haven't, and maybe that was because like I asked them on the spot and they weren't prepared. And I see the value in bringing them back to the table. Maybe they weren't good at the first attempt. Maybe they won't be good at the second attempt. But if they have it running in the background of their mind and they know that this is upcoming and they've done this a few times, maybe they'll get better. So maybe it won't be in one quarter, it won't be in 2 quarters, but maybe in a year, we start to see some of these leaders bubbling up a little bit more. My biggest question at the moment is there are people simply because of their experience, um, and their youth or their current position that I know that they won't be. I wouldn't top of mind put them as a leader, but I also want to challenge myself with that thinking and going, that's because they're in this position. And would it be? Would you advise, or would it be worthwhile to have everybody at the table at first because we are a small team?
For your size of your team, you could. You absolutely could. And for another creative company that we work with, this this 22-year-old gal who came from a background of family didn't really do anything but work to be able to get home, have a beer, and watch the game. Had no ambitions beyond this. Uh, with that kind of mentorship, pulled into things, and then not just for the ideas. Then we get a priority that's identified that somebody owns, and they build a little mini team of two others or something, and they have a little cadence that they're coming together and building that solution. Like, how will we ensure we hire the right people? Let's build a hiring system that's like gets it, that's our kind of people. Or how do we ensure this partner relationship happens anytime a new employee begins working with a partner? How do we ensure that process comes off great with the one of our new partners? Boom, right? Maybe they're building something out together. They're building the machine they're going to be running. Um, Let them act in it so they don't just have to think about it. They see how it hits the ground. That will help them in that growth. So take the time. It's more than an hour. Okay, it's more than an hour when you pull that time away on that quarterly basis. Take the time, learn through it. You're developing them to think strategically. You've asked them up till now to stay heads down and get that work done because there's so much of it. You're giving them freedom to say, you were built, you were meant to create more. I want you to create this business too, be a part of it. Have your fingerprints on it. Feel that sense of ownership. That's what I'm talking about in there. And yes, it'll take a little while. So that gal, she's now used in, they spun off another business. So they've got a few businesses, all in the 7-figure, going to 8-figure space. So, they've got a few $4 or $5 million businesses going. And she is their key person they use now to go across those businesses to ensure the culture and the alignment of what's going on happens.
Awesome.
Yes, she's only 25 now.
Wow. Wow.
So,
Yeah, that's
and
the
and
thing is,
the owners are in their 40s and 50s. This kid rose up, was believed in, stepped up. So don't worry about the age. Go off of the desire and the commitment, and the competencies that you see them picking up as they're growing. But it comes by inviting them into important discussions.
yeah, I think we can definitely benefit. And like you were saying, if through all that somebody becomes, or a couple of somebodies become a little bit more clear that this is a trajectory for them, then maybe we can have additional conversations
That's right.
and
It can get
strategize.
more formal in time. The beauty is at your size, they can lead from their current position. All they have
Exactly.
to do is lead out one of these teams for one quarter that does a cool thing and disbands. And then another one is doing, right? Maybe two of them are running little projects outside of their day job in order to grow the business. And wow, you'll see implementation happens a lot better. You see the commitment to it's a lot better because they created it, right? Their fingers are all over it. So it's an exciting place to be. All right. Well, that our time is, oh, I feel like there's just so much I wish I could share more about it. What you're solving for is so critical to meet the needs of the employees, your team members, to meet the needs of your partners, customers, and the rest of our vernacular, and to meet the needs of the owners to continue to invest in this business. Solving this problem is core to meet all of those. And so hopefully you got a few nuggets. We'll wrap
Yeah.
up at this point. But Russell, thank you so much for joining us. How do
Thank
people
you.
get in touch with you if they want amazing places and spaces for the things that they're building and designing out there? How do they get in touch with you?
You can go to our website, studiodzo.com. That's studio, D as in dog, Z as in zebra, O as in Oscar.com. You can find us on Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn. I think we have a TikTok, but you won't find me on there. But yeah, we share a lot of education on our social media. Right now in October, we're focusing on ADA and ADA compliance and designing better spaces for everyone. So yeah, follow us there, check out our work, and send us an email if you want to do some good work with good people.
Thanks, Russell. Well, that wraps up this episode of the Seven Figure Journey podcast. If you, as a listener, found the value you were hoping for, please like, share, do what's necessary to get other seven figure business owners to benefit from the insights Russell shared with us today. Until next time, keep striving, growing, learning, and caring.